Welcome back to the Silent Husband Club. We apologize for our long silence, but from now on we'll do our best to share new stories with you every single day. What would you do if the person you trusted most came home in the dead of night, trembling with fear, whispering words that sounded less like love and more like a warning? Tonight, I'll take you inside that moment, a moment that changed everything. If you enjoy dark, emotional stories like this, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. The muffled ticking of the bedside clock was the only sound in the room when I was suddenly torn from sleep. My name is Daniel Graves, and that night at exactly 2:37 in the morning I woke to a noise that didn't belong. A dull thud. Then another, sharper this time, almost demanding. My heart was pounding before I was even fully awake, and every muscle in my body stiffened instinctively. This wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. No, this was something else. Something intentional. Another knock. Then the faint scrape of nails across wood. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and glanced at the clock again, 2:37 a.m., a time when no one decent should be at my door. A sick, heavy unease began to crawl through my chest. Then I heard it. A voice. A woman's voice. Weak. Fractured. Desperate. "Daniel, open up." Ice rushed through my veins. I knew that voice instantly. Claire. My wife. I was on my feet in a heartbeat, fists clenched without even realizing it. I reached for my phone, hesitated, then moved toward the door instead. The hardwood floor was cold beneath my bare feet as I stepped into the hallway, shadows stretching long and strange under the flickering glow of the streetlight outside. Every second of silence only amplified the gnawing dread in my chest. And then I saw her. Through the peephole, bathed in that sickly stuttering light. Claire. Her blonde hair was a tangled mess, her mascara smeared down her cheeks, streaked by tears or sweat or maybe both. She swayed on her feet, clinging to the frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The elegant black dress she'd worn was wrinkled and crooked, and she had only one high heel on. But it wasn't her disheveled state that sent a cold shiver through my blood. It was her face. Her eyes, wide, unfocused, brimming with something more than drunken haze. Fear. Raw, unfiltered panic. Her lips trembled as she pushed herself forward, her voice breaking mid-breath. "Daniel, don't." Those words froze me. They weren't a plea. They weren't an apology. They were a warning. A warning about whatever was waiting for me outside that door. Claire's hands trembled as she clutched at my shirt when I finally let her in. Her fingers were ice cold, her breath shallow and uneven. A sob slipped out between her lips, carrying with it the sharp sting of alcohol mixed with her perfume, and beneath it all, the unmistakable stench of fear. My mind raced, connecting the details, her smudged makeup, the wrinkled dress, her eyes that kept darting away from mine. She didn't want me to look closer. She didn't want me to understand. "What did you do?" My voice came out low, flat. Too controlled. Like a blade pressed against flesh. Claire flinched as though I'd struck her. She shook her head, opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a whisper, cracked and fading, "Please, don't." But my eyes had already shifted past her, toward the window. And that's when I saw it. My car. Parked exactly where I had left it. Its metal frame glistening with dew under the streetlight. Perfectly ordinary. Except it wasn't. Because there's a shadow. A movement inside. My pulse skipped. Someone was sitting in my car. The realization sliced through me like ice. Whoever was in there wasn't some lost drunk who stumbled into the wrong vehicle. No. Claire's reaction made that clear. She knew. She knew exactly what was out there. And she would do anything to stop me from finding out. Daniel, please, don't go. Her voice was strangled with desperation, her hands gripping my wrist so tightly her nails dug into my skin. But I felt nothing. No pain. Just suspicion. A suspicion that gnawed deeper and deeper until it hollowed me out. And in her eyes, for the first time, I saw it. Not only fear, but guilt. My chest rose and fell slowly, controlled. The decision was already made. She should have known me better. Known that her warning was the very reason I couldn't turn away. I tore free from her grasp and stepped forward into the night. The cold air hit me the moment I stepped outside, sharp and biting, carrying with it the smell of damp asphalt and the faint sour tang of something metallic. The street was silent, unnervingly so, the kind of silence that made every breath sound too loud, every heartbeat feel like a drum. I moved slowly, each step echoing in the emptiness, my bare feet numbed by the chill pavement. My eyes were fixed on the car, on the shadows shifting within it. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't some stranger who had stumbled in by mistake, this was something deliberate, something Claire had known was coming. Behind me, I could hear her broken voice. Daniel, I'm begging you, don't. Her words clung to me like smoke, but they didn't slow me. If anything, they propelled me forward. Her desperation was proof, the final confirmation that the truth was waiting for me in that car. And once I'd seen it, nothing could ever be the same again. I reached for the door handle. The cold metal bit into my fingers, smooth and familiar, and for the briefest moment I hesitated. A single breath filled my lungs, heavy and final, before I pulled it open in one swift motion. The hinges groaned, the night split open, and the pale light of the moon spilled inside. What I saw made my stomach twist into a knot. A man slumped across the passenger seat, half-dressed, his shirt unbuttoned, his chest rising and falling in sluggish, uneven breaths. His jeans sat crooked on his hips, wrinkled, as though yanked up in a rush. An empty whiskey bottle dangled from his hand, sticky with some dark residue, its label torn. The stench of alcohol hit me like a slap, clinging to the air, mingled with the cheap sweetness of perfume and something else, something sour, metallic, foul enough to make me gag. I stood frozen, my hand still clutching the door handle, my mind scanning the scene like a camera searching for evidence. Claire's handbag lay open on the driver's seat, its contents spilled across the floor, her lipstick snapped in half, a crumpled napkin with blurred ink, and something that stopped my breath altogether, a motel key card. My throat tightened, my body went rigid. There it was, laid out in front of me, undeniable. The proof. My wife's fear wasn't about what might happen to me, it was about what I would discover. What the hell is this? My voice came out low, sharp, slicing through the night. Behind me, Claire gasped as though the words had struck her like a blow. I could hear her stumble forward, her sobs choking her voice, but I couldn't look at her. My eyes stayed locked on the wreck of a man in my car. He stirred then, muttering something incoherent before letting out a drunken laugh that made my skin crawl. His eyes cracked open, glassy and red, and when they landed on me, he squinted as though trying to piece together where he was. Then, with a sloppy grin, he slurred, baby, that was wild. Something inside me broke. Not with a scream or a violent outburst, but with the quiet, devastating finality of glass shattering under pressure. My chest felt hollow, my veins cold, my heart disturbingly calm. Without a word, I pulled out my phone. The camera flash cut through the darkness, each burst capturing the nightmare in front of me. One photo. Another. And another. Each one a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. Claire's breath hitched behind me, a desperate cry clawing its way out of her throat. Daniel, please, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. My focus was on the glowing screen, on the images that would ensure this moment was never erased, never denied, never forgotten. When I finally lifted my eyes to hers, she saw it. She saw that something in me had shifted forever. I was no longer the man she knew. I wasn't broken. I wasn't furious. I was resolved. Next, part 3 of 6-inch. Claire's sobs tore through the silence of the street, but they no longer reached me. Her voice was nothing but noise now, muffled by the clarity that had settled over me like frost. The man in my car shifted clumsily, his drunken body sliding against the leather seat as he let out another laugh, grotesque in its oblivion. I moved closer, each step deliberate, my shadow stretching long across the wet asphalt. My eyes bore into him with a calm that frightened even me. He was nothing, just a pathetic parasite that had wormed his way into my life. "Get up," I said, my voice low but absolute. He blinked, confusion swimming in his bloodshot eyes, a lazy grin still plastered across his face. "What?" he mumbled, rubbing at his temples as if he couldn't quite place where he was. My patience was already gone. I leaned forward, my words cutting through him like ice. I said, "Get up." Claire let out a strangled cry behind me. "Daniel, please, don't do this," but her pleas were too late. I grabbed the man by the wrist and yanked him out of the car with a force that sent him stumbling. His knees buckled, and he crashed to the pavement, the thud echoing like a verdict. He groaned, clutching at his arm, trying to push himself upright, but his drunken body betrayed him. Claire clutched her chest, gasping, as though she could hold her heart together with her bare hands. I looked down at him, this wreck of a man who had thought he could step into my life and take what wasn't his. My voice was calm, disturbingly so. "Your name doesn't matter. Soon, it won't matter to anyone." His mouth opened, his drunken stupor fighting to form words of protest, but I was already turning away. He wasn't worth more of my attention. I walked back toward the house, my steps steady, unhurried. The night air pressed against my skin, heavy and still, as though the world itself was holding its breath. I didn't slam the door when I entered. That would have been too loud, too emotional. I simply closed it behind me, the click echoing with quiet finality. Outside, Claire's sobs carried faintly through the walls, a pitiful sound that no longer touched me. Inside, the house was dark, serene, almost peaceful. I moved into the kitchen, the silence broken only by the hum of the refrigerator as I pressed the button on the coffee machine. The familiar air filled the room, absurdly normal against the chaos unraveling outside. I sat at the table, my fingers tapping slowly against the wood, the steam of fresh coffee rising untouched in front of me. For the first time in years, I felt control, pure, unshakable control. My phone lay on the table, glowing faintly in the dark. I opened the group chat with Claire's closest friends, my thumb hovering for only a second before I began typing. The words came easily, each one precise, deliberate, like the careful strokes of a blade. "I thought you should all know what Claire was doing last night while I believed she was with you." Then I attached the pictures. Evidence. Truth. Condemnation. There was no hesitation as I hit send. No doubt. Within seconds, my phone lit up like a battlefield, explosions of disbelief, outrage, and betrayal. This can't be real. Claire? Tell me this isn't true. Oh my God, how could you? The messages poured in, flooding the screen, but there was no reply from Claire. She hadn't realized yet that her world was already beginning to collapse. I leaned back in my chair, breathing deeply, my hands steady, my mind sharp. This was only the beginning. The flood of messages from her friends was only the first crack in the wall. I stared at the screen, watching Claire's silence stretch longer and longer, knowing each passing second tightened the noose around her. My fingers slid to another name in my contacts, one that would cut far deeper than any angry friend could. Her boss. A man whose entire existence revolved around reputation, image, and control. My words to him were simple, professional, stripped of emotion. Good morning. I feel compelled to inform you about a compromising situation involving one of your employees, Claire. Last night she was discovered in a state that could seriously damage your company's public image. Please review the attached files. I pressed send, set the phone down, and sipped the coffee that had gone lukewarm. It didn't matter. The taste was irrelevant. The silence that followed was short-lived. Within 5 minutes a message flashed across the screen. We will handle this internally. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. It was curt, efficient, merciless. Claire's career had just ended in a single line of text. As the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, the consequences of my actions began to take root. I imagined her still in the bedroom, oblivious, clinging to the remnants of a night that had already destroyed her. But the world outside had already turned against her. Friends, colleagues, family, it was only a matter of time before the tide reached her phone and dragged her under. I leaned back in the chair, listening to the faint hum of the coffee machine, the world outside slowly waking up, unaware of the devastation happening within these walls. Her phone must have lit up like a storm, every vibration another hammer blow. I could see it in my mind, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief, scrolling frantically through the torrent of messages. Please tell me this is a joke. You've humiliated us all. We can never look at you the same again. Then the one that would shatter her completely, her mother's cold, clinical words, we've seen the pictures. Do not call us until you've fixed your life. It was more than rejection, it was exile. But I wasn't finished. No, this was too clean, too private. Her disgrace needed air, sunlight, and the merciless eyes of strangers. I opened a local gossip forum, the kind of place that thrived on humiliation. With a few keystrokes, I uploaded one of the photos and typed only a single line: who was the half-naked fool in a married woman's car last night? Any guesses? Winking face within minutes, the comments exploded. What a disgrace. She threw away her husband for that? His face should be a meme. The cruelty of strangers was a wildfire, burning faster than any personal betrayal ever could. Claire's voice finally broke through the silence. Her scream carried through the walls, a desperate, guttural sound that was more animal than human. She must have realized, in that instant, who had pulled the strings, who had set her life on fire. Her footsteps stumbled down the hallway, her frantic sobs rising with each step as she clutched her phone like a lifeline. She called me once. Twice. 3 times. Each ring echoed in the quiet kitchen, but I never moved to answer. On the 4th attempt, the line didn't ring at all. I had already blocked her. The rain began outside, heavy drops slamming against the windows like nature itself wanted to bury her in shame. I sat at the table, calm, unmoving, sipping the bitter coffee that had long gone cold. The storm inside her was no longer mine to carry. Claire sat collapsed on the living room sofa, her phone trembling in her hands as message after message poured in like relentless waves. Every notification was another stone thrown, another piece of her shattered world sinking into the abyss. Her friends had turned, her colleagues had disowned her, and even her parents had cast her aside with words that cut deeper than any blade. We've seen the pictures. Don't call us until you have your life together. She stared at those words as if they had been carved into her skin, her breath ragged, her eyes swollen from tears that wouldn't stop. She dialed my number again, desperate, her voice breaking into sobs before the call could even connect. But the line cut instantly. I had erased her access to me completely. Her cries rose and fell with the storm outside, the sound of rain slamming against the windows like a cruel soundtrack to her unraveling. She staggered into the bathroom, gripping the sink with white knuckles, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. The woman looking back at her was unrecognizable, bloodshot eyes ringed with dark shadows, mascara streaked like war paint across her cheeks, lips raw from biting. She looked like a stranger. Like a ghost. She whispered my name as though it might summon me, but her voice was swallowed by the dripping faucet, each drop another reminder of her isolation. Meanwhile, I was far from that house. I sat in a small corner cafe on the other side of town, watching the rain trail down the windows in thin, glistening streams. The warmth of the coffee in my hands felt almost foreign, but comforting in its simplicity. Around me, the quiet hum of strangers living their ordinary lives wrapped me in a cocoon of detachment. My phone lay face down on the table, silent now. No more messages, no more notifications, no more echoes of the chaos I had unleashed. I had silenced the noise. All that remained was stillness. Claire's world was burning, collapsing into ash with every passing second, but I felt none of it. No anger. No joy. No grief. Just a cold, unwavering clarity. She had destroyed the life we built together, and now I had taken away the one she thought she had outside of me. There was no going back for her, no redemption, no forgiveness waiting at the end of this storm. She was alone, stripped bare for the world to see. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the bitterness linger on my tongue. The rain outside showed no sign of stopping. And I had no reason to rush. The cafe was warm, almost too warm, the soft chatter of strangers rising and falling like background static. I sat there, unmoving, staring through the rain-streaked glass at a world that hadn't noticed my life had shattered only hours ago. But in truth, I didn't feel shattered anymore. The destruction was no longer mine to carry, it was hers. Claire's cries still echoed somewhere in the back of my mind, faint and fading, like a voice slipping down a long hallway until it was gone. I imagined her sitting alone, knees pulled to her chest, her phone buzzing with messages she no longer dared to open. Each one a reminder that she had nothing left, no friends, no family, no career, no husband. Nothing but silence and shame. I finished the last sip of coffee, the bitterness settling deep in my chest, and placed a few bills on the table. My hand lingered for a moment, steady, before I pushed the cup away and stood. Around me, the world continued as though nothing had happened, couples laughing, a child pressing her nose against the glass, the waiter humming to himself as he cleared plates. Their normalcy felt almost surreal. I stepped outside into the rain, letting the cold drops soak into my shirt, the wind cutting sharp against my face. And yet, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy. Not free. But unburdened. The city smelled of wet asphalt and cigarette smoke, of new beginnings hidden in dirty corners. I walked without a destination, my pace calm, my thoughts still. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a stray message that had slipped through. I didn't even check it. I didn't need to. The life I had lived with Claire, the man I had been, was already behind me. At the corner of the street, I stopped, watching the headlights of a bus pierce through the rain. The doors hissed open, passengers spilling out, others climbing in. I felt the weight of a choice pressing against me, heavy yet liberating. Stay in this city, in this house of ghosts and ashes, or step forward into something unknown. My fingers closed around the damp strap of my bag. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel afraid. I climbed the steps of the bus without looking back. The driver barely glanced at me as I dropped a few coins into the tray and moved toward the window seat. The engine rumbled to life, the rain blurring the lights outside into streaks of white and gold. As the bus pulled away, I leaned my head against the glass, the cold seeping into my skin, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Behind me, Claire's world crumbled. Ahead of me, mine was unwritten.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your story, your truth. Subscribe for more raw, real, and unforgettable confessions. And if this story made you feel seen, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. You're not alone here. This channel is a safe space for those who've been betrayed, broken, and rebuilt.